Hi, Saumer. Welcome back to the next episode.
Happy to be here.
So, Saumer, this is all about AI. Today we're going to talk about all about AI and how Intel can help companies on their AI journey. And as you know that AI is now ubiquitous. When I was trying to come here today, I opened my map application. I expected to know where I'm going, because there were multiple emails and multiple chat responses about where should meet. So expectations are very high. Customer expect your application to be smart, to be AI driven, to know kind of intuitively, what we'd want next. So in that kind of landscape, right? How can Intel help customers with their kind of workloads, but especially if you want to focus a little bit more on their AI workloads?
Sure thing, Bhavesh. Great example you brought up, right? Now, if I were to take it back a little bit, if you really look at this whole journey that's happening, we believe that we need to look at it in three phases and an evolving fourth phase. Okay. So if you look at the phase one or Web 1.0, it is about digitization, right? You have data, you have a lot of data, you're creating data, what have you. Web 2.0 is fundamentally about analyzing that data. You have the data, you create analytics, you give output. What we're moving towards today, most of it is Web 3.0. What is Web 3? And I also read it's part of your interest area, right? So in Web 3.0, what you're talking about is data is actually getting distributed, getting heterogeneous. You really want to be able to put it close to the end user or whoever is generating the data so they can make the best decisions, right, about how to monetize that data, how to use that data, how to make sure it is secure, right? So now what I'm talking about is, and by the way, the evolving force phases, I'm sure everybody has heard about ChatGPT, right? The generative AI. Yep. What happens in that? Yeah, what do we need to do for that, right? And we'll talk about it in a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
But if you think about this four phases, especially this phase 3 I'm talking about, which is the majority Web 3.0 phase, you should think about going back to what you need for you using it for a map is different from me when I'm trying to get my healthcare system up. Okay. So what Intel do at a silicon level is how to improve that conversation is provide purpose-built solutions. Like, for example, we talked about Xeon, which is more about data-centric capabilities. But if you're talking about a video camera, we have something called Movidius, which is an edge capability. So providing a portfolio of solutions that could meet the requirements of a purpose-built workload or ask that the customer has is kind of step one. Okay? Now, if you take that as a baseline, the next thing of the conversation becomes, you got to be secure, as I keep saying. Right? How do you mention the security? And a lot of times the security, by the way, the AI, if you go to generative AI, you don't even know what data is. How do you make it zero trust when you don't even know the next solution? So we are very focused on making the security piece of it. How can you make it zero trust? Beyond that, to us, AI is a full stack solution. So we obviously work on the libraries, we work on improving the PyTorches and the TensorFlows, what have you. You'll see us kind of doing that. It's all about access. It's all about making it available for developers to be able to go and do that. And finally, last but not least, the tools, framework, what have you. So how we're improving, I told you the silicon level, I told you the security around it, I told you about how you have worked with the frameworks and tools and libraries to optimize. We talk about access, and finally we talk about the frameworks.
So, now that for a company, there are just way too many tools, way too many stacks, right? So much happening in AI. How can a company leverage AI better for themselves?
My personal observation, having been in the industry and looking at it, is it needs a fundamental reimagination of the business process right now, right? Because what is possible today in terms of what AI can offer, what is required from AI to offer, what the affordability of the computation and the latency, what have you, I think it requires a rehaul of this business processes organization they're going through to work at what's the best available and how you do that. And I think, to me, if I were to make one request to the customer base or to the users, they need to reimagine the business process to be able to use the best available to give the best outcomes, going back to the 3 or 4 fundamental problems that we talked about: problems of tomorrow, complexity of today, right? Sustainability.
Correct.
How do you make sure it's secure, and what's the final outcome? Existing process with kludge or ad hoc fixes probably exposes these organizations to more vulnerabilities from a security perspective.
Got it. And Saumer, you are right that you have to reimagine that in every process, don't you? Earlier, for example, you go to an e-commerce site, and if it's a grocery kind of site, right? customer were happy putting, okay, I want milk and eggs and sugar and whatever you. But now the customer expects that, okay, I buy it every week. Why can't you predict for me that, okay, I'm going to be, and already kind of recommend that these are the 5 things we think you might want to put in your card, right?
And good that you brought it up, because if you talk about generative AI, it exactly is addressing what you're talking about. You're saying, hey, look, there is not enough data to train my models. There's not enough data to go and validate what I'm talking about. I need it here and now. Okay. So historically, if you see, there is data, which is processing, then there's this inferencing, and then there's this whole modeling, let's make sure the model is perfect, what have you. Now you're essentially trying to say, I need to be generating it on the fly, train it on the fly, correct, and give the output to Bhavesh that he's looking for. Correct. Yeah. So what does it require? It requires that the platforms and solutions are able to drive the convergence at a platform level itself to be able to give you that output. And by the way, and that I'm proud of being at Intel, because if you look at the Xeon 4th Gen, it exactly does that. Absolutely. So we have something called advanced vector extensions, or AVX 512. It addresses the part about the data processing I talked about, right? We also have something called vector neural network instructions, or VNNI. This has been the key drivers for Intel's, I would say, leadership in inferencing, where majority of your today's inferencing lies on Xeon. A, it gives you probably, hopefully close to what you're looking at. We're not done there as yet. B, it also gives you the cost-optimized conversation, right? Or a sustainable conversation, or a low-power conversation that you're looking at. That's where we are going forward.
How does Intel help customers managing this kind of edge to cloud to on-premises kind of data and infrastructure management of work, or especially AI workloads across these different platforms?
At a silicon level itself, we have made it pervasive. As I said, the advanced matrix extension, or AMX, is part of every core, right? Fantastic. But at the same time, you really need your hardware to be aligned to the workload requirement here. The second thing we bring about, as I say, is try to make it secure. Because the moment you talk about orchestration across multiple cloud, how do you drive the security across the platform is something that we are kind of very clear about, right? I'll refer to a project with Google called OpenXLA, right? We have a low-level virtual machine that we have actually exposed this to the developers, right? What it happens is that when the whole open community has an access to it, we can't even predict what kind of branches it is generating and the output it is generating, which is for the broader community to use. Okay. So we have worked with them on this OpenXLA project. Beyond, when we look at our versions of Python and what have you, or we have certain DNNs that we talk to, we have actually contributed that to the community. Okay. So which means that all its capabilities are now available and accessible for developers and organizations to use to optimize the usage of AI. Last but not the least, if you learn, or if you get a chance, please do OpenVINO in your, since you're from the cloud world as you're talking about, right? What OpenVINO does is, a lot of times, it happens that the time you take to, train a model, get the right model, optimize for your data set with the speed that you're moving it on bare metal, it takes a lot of time. Correct. So OpenVINO gives you a framework to be able to use optimized models, which are at times pre-built. So you may have to customize it to your data a little bit, but it gives you pre-built, right? That conversation of a framework with the models, that conversation of accessibility from developers who are already using those applications, that confidence of trust, and then a platform which is hopefully cost optimized, leveraging what you need, that's the complete spectrum. And I'll give you an example, by the way, on this, since you brought this up. One of the Fujitsu, and India has a couple of large customer relationship organizations, like SaaS-based, like a Zoho or a Freshworks, what have you, who are like unicorns, right? Now, when you look at CRMs, one of the biggest things is sentimental analysis. How do you have these multiple channels of data communication coming in? How do you are able to predict that sentiment to make sure you're making the right call at a right latency and a right SLA back to the customer, right? Okay. Fujitsu has been able to leverage our technology, working with our models, right, and certain models that we help them optimize through OpenVINO to get a 4x improvement on the sentiment analysis that they provided to their customer. So that's the kind of impact you can create, A, by providing right capabilities, and B, working with the ecosystem to support the customer.
It just makes life of organizations so much easier, that they don't have to have a very strong data science team generating those models from scratch and spending so much 6 months, 8 months, 10 months to kind of create that model. They can just take that model, deploy it wherever they want, and get full benefit of that.
There you go. And I think if you take, I gave you an example of sentiment analysis. We are working with organizations in India. We are working with organizations who are working with the KYC, or computer vision-based conversation, because nowadays getting the Aadhaar card, getting the,
Correct.
those are models where improvement or change of the latency number by 3x, 4x makes a fundamental difference in terms of their customer satisfaction.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, people just see cost per unit. But I think what also I'm hearing is that with so many different kind of accelerations that Intel Xeon, the 4th gen provides, that customers should try out the CPU with their different workloads, see the performance gain that they are getting, and really try to have the TCO, true cost of ownership, the true cost of workload with that. Because on cloud or on premises, if you have 100 CPUs doing 1 unit of work and 1 CPU doing 100 units of work,
right,
is the same.
It's the same.
It doesn't really matter. And in many cases, it's better because then you have to manage less amount of CPUs, less amount of virtual machines to will do the same amount of work.
And in that context, given that it's a new platform, and as I said, it's moving so fast. If the audience and the customers have any questions, I would just request them to reach out to us. I mean, the information is available. We'll be happy to walk them through and help them. And again, in the process, we learn as well.
Correct.
Because I'm sure it is not solving every problem. What else do we need to do? Because it's all about customer in, hearing to the customer in that what our solutions should offer.
Great. On that note, thank you so much, Saumer, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, and a great discussion, and looking forward.
Thanks.